Women of Colors, one day, one goal, one person at a time. Hello, I'm Vicki Hill, and I am the Vice Chair of Women of Colors. Women of Colors is an organization that partners with other organizations. We mentor the youth and we empower women and families. I would like to introduce you to Marcia and Marcus. Marcia was dealing with a drug addiction, and her son Marcus had to find a way of coping. Now they're both sharing their story of how they overcame this drug addiction.
My name is Marcia Michelle Reeves, and yes, it's Marcia, not Marcia. And I was born and raised in Paterson, New Jersey. This is my handsome son, and he'll tell you who he is.
My name is Marcus Stewart, and I was also born in Paterson, New Jersey.
Well, I'd like to take it back to December 3rd, 1979. Marcus was a premature baby. He was very small. He weighed 2 pounds, 12 ounces. He was a kid who had a great imagination. I love that about him. Me being a single mom, he had to play alone a lot of times. So for that, I'm real grateful for him being able to use his imagination.
Definitely a dynamic duo that always, were seen together, hanging out together, running the streets together.
Literally. I mean, we had to run for buses, catch a taxi cab, whatever it was, but we were always together.
I'd like to introduce you to Lori and Amanda. Amanda had a drug addiction for a very long time. She and her mother struggled together with this addiction, her mother trying to find help for her daughter. She was at her wit's end until she found some resources to help her daughter. Now, Amanda and her mom, Lori, are going around and they're educating others on drug addiction, helping families through whatever they might be going through.
I'm Lori Zilkowski. I'm an associate professor of management at Delta College, and I'm also the vice president of Families Against Narcotics here in the Bay City, Saginaw, Midland area. We run the Hope Not Handcuffs program to help people who are struggling with addiction get the help that they need. And this is my daughter, Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda Zilkowski. I am a certified peer recovery coach and am the women's housing director of a recovery house in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
I would say that our family is just a typical American family. We lived on a cul-de-sac in a 3-bedroom house with a built-in pool, and we just had a really great life. Amanda's our only child.
Spoiled.
Yeah, a little spoiled. She was raised with some privilege. We were happy to do that for her, so we had a lot of fun times. We went to concerts and had pool parties and cookie decorating parties, and just really had a lot of fun and a lot of love. She was able to go to Christian school up through 7th grade,
Yep.
and we just tried to make the best decisions for her so she would have a great life.
Yeah, had a lot of friends. I played a lot of sports growing up. That really helped me kind of connect with others. I loved my parents. We were always very close since I was the only child. She drove me to school every day. She was at every volleyball game, every swim meet, every single thing that I did. My parents were always there to support me.
I love the fact that we were able to travel. We went quite a few places. Even though I was a single mom, I felt like we had to live life. So Disney World,
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, Puerto Rico,
Yeah,
the
lots
Big
of
Red
amusement parks,
Boat,
Big Red Boat,
Bahamas.
Busch Gardens,
So,
lots of
we
fun
did
places.
live a life that was full, until things started to take a turn.
So teenage years are sometimes challenging, and she's our only child, so we didn't quite know what to expect. And so we started noticing about summer of her junior year that things started to begin to change a little bit.
Early on, it was really good. I mean, it's like talking about being a single kid. I had a lot of everything I needed. I had toys, I had games. I had a lot of fun at home. But then I sort of realized I was spending less time at home because I was having to stay with relatives, like my grandmother, for a period of time. I would go, I think it would be for a weekend, but then it turned into like a week I was staying with her. And then it turned into points where I really started knowing the issue when I would be at home with my mom, and all of a sudden she wasn't there. And I didn't know where she would be, and sometimes I didn't know when she was going to come back, or, sometimes even if she was going to come back.
So in the beginning of my teenage years, I really started to feel a sense of anxiety about any sort of responsibility, about going to school, about things I used to love, like playing sports and playing volleyball, hanging out with my friends. I knew that we had such a great connection and I loved them, but I just felt different for some reason. I felt like I never fit in. I was very self-conscious about myself. Every day I had to straighten my hair and make sure that I had the best clothes, and I just wanted to make myself look okay on the outside to try and help me feel better on the inside, but I was depressed. I started isolating myself. I wouldn't go to school. I eventually quit playing volleyball. Just really started to decline on how I cared for myself.
I think that's when it was starting to get a little scary, and I really noticed that this might be something a little bit more going on than just something simple. I think I used to think it was just kind of an illness or kind of a work thing, but then I really knew, like, no, this is kind of more serious now. Like, now I'm not sure when mom's going to come home.
And we started to notice that too about the summer of her junior year. We just noticed a change in her spirit. She wasn't happy anymore, joyful about things that used to bring her a lot of happiness. So she, even though she really wanted to keep her grades up, she stopped going to school, and she stopped hanging around her good friends, and she stopped playing volleyball, and we just noticed a physical change in her. And so we were concerned, took her to a doctor. They diagnosed her with depression and anxiety, but I think even at that point she maybe had already started using some drugs that were available to try to help her feel better.
I had an addiction to crack cocaine, and it just took over my life.
We found out that Amanda was struggling with drug addiction in May of 2013 when I received a phone call from my mom, her grandma, that Papa couldn't wake her up. And she was in the little pink bedroom where all her childhood toys were, and there was a needle on the bed and the ambulance was coming. And we couldn't figure out what was happening with her, so we followed the ambulance to the hospital, and it was then that we learned that she had a heroin overdose.
Like every other addict, it starts just with marijuana, little this, a little that. And you start doing it with everybody. And then one day you look up and you're in the house by yourself, getting high by yourself. And that's when you realize, I think I'm addicted.
So I started off using to kind of numb that isolation, and what it really did is it just perpetuated it and made me cut off from the entire world. I couldn't tell my family what I was going through because I was feeling so much guilt and shame. I would do anything I could to get money for it. I would use on a daily basis, multiple times a day, and try to hide it to the best of my ability, but that only worked for so long before the people that loved me started questioning what was really going on. And it was complete misery. I started working a couple jobs, but I was unemployable because I couldn't stop using, and then being stuck in that, I didn't know how to get out of it.
And because our life was so consistent, I had to keep that up. I had to keep that persona as if everything was still okay. I didn't say anything for a long time to anyone because people were seeing me out buying the drugs, and people were starting to hear that I wasn't coming to work, that I could lose my job. So I think that's when, my mom had to have that talk with him, because she knew that people were going to eventually tell him he was going to find out some way. But the addiction had come in and had taken over my life, and it got to a point where, as much as I loved my son, the addiction was so gripping that it will make you forget who you love because you're chasing that drug.
And so there are a lot of paths into addiction, and especially with somebody who is her age, 15, 16, 17, when they start just low-level stuff like smoking cigarettes or drinking or using marijuana and taking Adderall, a friend's Adderall to study to keep her grades up, and then feeling bad and taking a narcotic pill the next day to chill out, and it just kind of spiraled very, very quickly for her into full-blown addiction, where one pill wasn't enough and 7 pills weren't enough, and eventually she started snorting heroin and then learned how to shoot up by watching a YouTube video. And at that point, it had taken over her life. It became the number one thing of her daily living. That was her goal, was how to get drugs and how to use drugs. Nothing else mattered anymore.
And then eventually, this is way back in the day when crack wasn't even out. You'd have to go and buy your own cocaine and cook it and freebase. And so once crack came around, it made it more attainable. But one of my trips away overseas to the Bahamas, and I think we were introduced to cocaine like all night long, and that took me to a different high. And I knew when I came back from that trip that I wanted to continue that level of getting high. And so once crack became available, that's what did it.
So at that time, anyone that loved me and supported me and wanted to know what was going on, I pushed away because I didn't want them to find out. So I put up a barrier between us in order to keep my addiction a secret. And the close relationship I had with my parents and my friends slowly disintegrated. And I thought that I felt alone before, but really that was, in the midst of my addiction, the worst possible lonely feeling that I believe a human can experience. Because I didn't want them to find out, because I was so shameful and guilty about my behaviors, and I felt out of control because I couldn't allow the people that helped me my entire life in anymore because I didn't want them to help. I couldn't accept it because I couldn't stop using.
In my addiction, there were a lot of things that bothered me, but there's one particular one that bothers me still, and that was a morning. I was getting high, and it was already the AMs, and I knew Marcus would be going to school, and I was at a house where I could see him. I hadn't seen him in a couple of days, and I just remember standing at that window just so I could see him walk to school. Because I just missed him and I wanted to see him. And I just hated that. I was in this home just so ashamed and so hurt that life had come to that. And it was shortly after that I did get the help I needed. But that's when I knew I can't live my life like this. That for him, I've got to get it together.
And what we didn't realize is that her brain actually was physically changed. It rewired her programming for a couple of reasons. One, she was young when she started. So she started at 15 with low-level marijuana, alcohol, kind of typical teenage stuff that's very accepted and kind of is expected almost in high school. And for some kids, they can use that and they might not get addicted, but for other kids, they do. And you don't know if that's you until it's too late. And so for her, she was young. She also has a family history of alcoholism, so it was in her gene pool. We didn't know that either. We didn't know that she's got her dad's brown hair and brown eyes, and she also has addiction on both sides of her family, and that would make her more likely to become addicted to drugs. We didn't know that. And so we were really uneducated about the risk that is involved in the substances, especially when people start using them at a young age, how dangerous that is. There's a 1 in 4 chance that you'll become addicted to something if you start using before the age of 21. 1 in 4. And so even if you wait until the age of 21 and use after that, your odds improve 1 in 25. But because young people's brains are still getting programmed and they're still writing that code, if you write it with substances involved, you have a very good chance of becoming addicted to those things, and we didn't know that.
When it got as bad as it got, I would, when my mom would be gone, I would stay with my grandmother. And it was good to have that security for that. I know that if something bad was happening and going on, I'd always have my grandmother to go stay with.
Jesus loves you. This I know, for the Bible tells us so.
Like a typical mom, you know, she'd make me dinner, and then at night when I had to go down, you know, she told me how to pray, and she would sit with me, and she would pray with me, and every night we would, you know, we'd pray for our family members, and we would pray for my mom. It was always great to have my grandmother around to pray for me and comfort me, and I learned so much from her. It was so good to have a person like that to comfort me and to have that to fall back on when times were scary. I had that person in my life to comfort me and to let me know that it was going to be okay, and to teach me how to pray and still have hope and still believe that my mother was going to come out of this, and that our positive prayers and positive thoughts of what we're going to do is going to help her get through this and be a better person.
And it was really hard for me to see past what I was going through. I thought that these feelings that I have are forever, and really that's the farthest thing from the truth. Everything comes and everything goes. Those negative emotions I was feeling could have been gone if I would have just talked about them and if I would have gotten through it, but instead I perpetuated it. It's really hard to see past what you're going through when you're a kid, and when you think that you're not a kid anymore and you're an adult and that you have all the answers. It's hard to see past those hard things that are coming into your life, but there really is another side to it, and there is a better way to do things. If I even knew that what I had been through now was an option, I don't believe I would have ever picked up in the first place.
And I think that's so important with youth who have an addicted parent, that they understand that maybe mama or daddy has to go away in order to get the help they need. And it may be tough, it may be hard, but we're going to come out good on the other side if we can stick it out.
And I think even for me as a kid, I think the first and foremost thought or anything, I was like, whatever it's going to take to get you help and get you home. Even as a kid, just understanding that, like, whatever we got to do, whatever we got to go through that's going to get you better, to get you home, we'll do it. Let's do it. You know, we'll make it work.
So there are other options than giving into peer pressure and saying yes to something that you don't necessarily want to do, but you don't want to disappoint your friends or feel like an outcast. So you can just straight up say no, that's not something that I'm interested in, and hold your own. A lot of times, myself included, I was a little bit more shy when I was in social situations where I felt uncomfortable, so I would just kind of say like, no thank you. We had a secret code kind of where I didn't want to say no to my friends, so I had my mom do it for me, which is completely acceptable because all three scenarios put me in the situation that I wanted to be in, which was not doing something that I wasn't comfortable with doing.
That movie sucked. So, like, what do you want to do now? I have an idea. Yeah? I don't want to do that. Yeah?
No, that's illegal.
It's legal in Michigan.
Yeah, for adults. We're minors.
My dad does it all the time. Why can't I do it all the time?
Because he's a legal adult. What's not clicking?
I want to have fun.
I'm out of here.
Whatever. Yeah?
Hello? Yeah, I'm just hanging out with friends. Oh, right now? Oh, okay. Bye. My mom called. She is outside right now. She wants to take me home.
Are you kidding me right now?
No.
Bye.
There's always a way to say no to something that you're not comfortable doing, no matter your personality type, no matter your social status, or how you're feeling in that moment. If you're not comfortable with doing something or you're kind of iffy about it, you can always say no and then come back to it later. Once you say yes, there's no going back.
A couple other options are, especially if you play sports, that's a real risk factor if you're using drugs because you're going to get kicked off the team. So you can always say that, no, I can't do that because I'll get kicked off the team. Another thing that I heard a young person say is, I told my friends that I'm allergic to it, that I tried it before and I got really sick. So if you have friends who are still pressuring you to try something and it made you sick, I would really evaluate if they have your best interest at heart.
Well, the program I went to was the Teen Challenge program. It's actually for teen and adults. And it was a 1-year program, and I had to leave New Jersey, come and stay for 1 year. And it was extensive. It was isolated. It was nothing I was used to, the early morning wake ups to the early going to bed. As an adult, I felt like I was being almost controlled as a young person, but as long as I had been living on my own, I still realized they were offering me a discipline I didn't have.
Because I made the decision to start using, I went through terrible physical withdrawal. I was throwing up, I had the chills, I was sicker than I've ever been in my entire life. I had that feeling of being alone all over again times 1,000. And it didn't stop then. I still have to make the decision every single day not to use and overcome that obsession that can pop into my mind just because I decided to, experiment with drugs when I was a teenager. Now I live the rest of my life having to go back and fix what I could have prevented in the first place. And it's never going to end. I'm not going to be cured one day. It's a daily decision that I have to make, and different therapies and medications and 12-step programs that I need to do for the rest of my life now because I decided to start using in the first place.
Hello, my name is Evelyn McGovern, and I am the president and co-founder and substance abuse prevention coordinator for Women of Colors. And we want you to know, addiction does not discriminate.
Don't take for granted the people who are in your life that will reach out and help you, from the relatives, from the cousins, to the family, friends. They all looked out and came out to help me and make sure I was taken care of. I was still having fun. I was still having a quality of life, and know that they still loved and supported me, and I never was feeling alone. And you got to lean on those people. You got to, make sure you're keeping those people close to you and don't isolate yourself. Reach out and let those people love on you, take care of you, let them know, let that community help you, help raise you, and help be who you are. Don't ever feel like you've got to go through that alone. You got to endure it until it's all over. Let those people help you through that and let them help you get through that time.
There are people out there who are willing to help you find the resources if you can't, from your safe houses to your after school programs to your churches to your sports, your coaches. There are people that can help you find that support that they need. I don't want any child to ever feel like they don't have anyone, because there are people who will help them, who will help their parents too. Me getting the help I need came from, my stepdad talking to another person who told me about the program in Michigan. So networking, being open enough to tell people what's going on, letting people know there is a problem. I am sad. My mother, something's going on in our home, and finding those individuals that will help you get the help you need, or your parent get the help they need.
Most of us know a family member, friend, or even ourselves are dealing with addiction. And Women of Colors want you to know that you are not alone.
If I would have known that what I went through was even an option if I would have tried it for the first time, I don't think that I would have ever picked it up. I think that I don't know if it was being sheltered or if it was thinking that I could outsmart it or that I knew better or that I knew myself enough that that would never affect me like it affects some types of people. I wish that I would have known that it was an option for me, no matter how well I know myself, no matter how smart I am. Drug addiction does not discriminate on religion, on race, on sexuality, on male or female. It does not care who you are or your belief system. And I wish I would have known that there were other ways.
I could harbor a lot more bad feelings, but honestly, like, I am so at peace with where I am now and who my mother is now. I think that's what I can be who I am now, because one, I could look back and say, I didn't have it as bad as other kids. It was a hard, rough time, but it was not nearly as bad as other kids. But also, I am so proud of who she is now. I can look back and see who the person she is now, who she come through on the other side, and it gives me pride to see the example she set for me, the example my grandmother set for me. I'm pretty much now with my life, I try to follow in their footsteps. I look at how they've given back to the community and looked out for other people, and I want to be like them. I want to be the examples that they have set for me.
And I'm real thankful that I get to share my story, and this is my passion, just to give kids hope that if you have a mom or dad going through an addiction, there is light on the other side. I'm real thankful for the tools I was given. I'm real thankful for the state of Michigan taking me in, making this my new home. I'm thankful for a mother who was a praying mother. I'm thankful for women of colors who, give you a platform to share your story. Yes. And they've been passionate about that. And I'm just real grateful that we're helping youth and families, just give them some hope and tools that they can use so that we can beat this thing called addiction.
Yes.
Most young people don't think that they need help, but we all need help. You are not alone. There's many resources that can help you if you just reach out. You can always contact Women of Colors, and if we can help you, we will find resources that can.
Recovery is possible.
And it is preventable, so the best thing to do is just not get started in the first place.
On behalf of myself and Women of Colors, I hope you enjoyed our presentation. I want to let you know that you are never alone. There is help out there for you. Thank you.
Young people, parents, guardians, angels, please don't give up. Hope is real if you believe. Welcome to part 2, additional information for parents and guardians.
As the mom of a daughter who is now over 3 years in recovery from a 4-year IV heroin battle, there are a lot of things that I know that I would like to share with parents, teachers, other adults that might be able to prevent this from happening to the young people in their lives. Some of the things that we noticed early on in her addiction was a decline in self-care. The kid who wanted to accessorize every day stopped taking showers, stopped caring about what she looked like, and she started physically to look sick. She started pulling away from things that she loved, like her friends and her family and sports, stopped caring about school, and just really was starting to check out. She didn't seem happy at all anymore. She was depressed, she was anxious, she was becoming combative, and there was a real huge shift in her personality. And those to me would be some warning signs that had I known then, I would have recognized it a little bit better, and we could possibly have gotten her treatment earlier on. Some of the physical things that I noticed in her room were small little pieces of cotton balls that I naively thought were from Q-tips for makeup. She expressed a desire for tinfoil for art projects at school. I don't even know if you remember that, but she was using tinfoil not for art projects, but for drug use. We'd find empty alcohol bottles in her room. I found a container with pills, and those are all warning signs that I wish I would have been more vocal and really had some sit-down conversations with her instead of just mentioning like, hey, stop doing that. That's a really bad idea. What are you doing with this? It shouldn't be punitive. When we notice somebody who is young and starting into substance abuse, it should be educational. And here's what this is leading to. Here's how this is impacting you. And I wish I would have known then what I know now in terms of age of first use is a huge risk factor. So the younger somebody starts to use, the more likely it is they are going to become addicted. There's a 1 in 4 chance that they're going to become addicted if they start using before the age of 21. Those are really bad odds. If there's a genetic history in your family of alcoholism or drug use, your child is at greater risk to becoming addicted. And we have that on both sides of our gene pool. Even though she was not raised in a family directly that use drug or alcohol, we have it on our grandparents or aunts and uncles that struggle with that. And I didn't know that would put her more at risk. And so maybe some kids can try it and it doesn't affect them, but you don't know if that's you. And then the availability of drugs right now. This is a very different world that our teens are living in that there are prescription narcotics that have been overprescribed by physicians for the last 10 years. Those sit around in people's cupboards and they get sold or they get given for free to people who want them. Adderall, which when prescribed correctly for people who have ADHD, is a great drug to help with that. But people who don't have ADHD are taking them to stay up and study and to write papers and to focus. It's the #1 abused prescription medication on the college campus. It's really important to talk to your young people about how powerful those pills are and how quickly they can hijack the brain and set them up for a lifetime of addiction and treatment for addiction, which is not fun. So there are a lot of things that I wish I would have known that I'm here to share with you. Our Families Against Narcotics group meets monthly at Delta College, and it's one of the things that I wish as a parent that I would have had, because Amanda had treatment options, and as family members, you're really just kind of shut out from that. And so I created an organization, a chapter here that allows parents to come. The people struggling can come, people in recovery can come, and it's our community coming together to figure out how we can stop this crisis. We also have a Hope Not Handcuffs program that allows someone struggling with addiction to either walk into a participating police department, call us on our phone number, or apply online. And we have nearly 200 trained community volunteer angels that can help guide them into treatment. And we've currently placed statewide over 3,000 people in our first 2 years. Locally, over 85 people we placed into treatment our first year. Because people don't know where to go for help. They don't know what to do. They don't know what numbers to call or that even help is available. This is a preventable disease. It's a treatable disease. And the best thing to do is to make sure that your kids understand, give them the information. They're smart. They know more about what's going on with drug culture than you do, and talk honestly to them and listen to them. Not just talk to them, but ask them questions about what they're experiencing. Give them some tools on how to handle it if they're in a situation that they're uncomfortable with and they don't know how to socially comfortably get out of that situation. We need to arm our kids better with some of those coping mechanisms. If you see that they're struggling and sad or feeling isolated, open up that conversation. I wish I would have said to Amanda, honey, you seem really sad. What's happening right now? You don't seem like yourself. Talk to me about what's going on in your life, because we get really busy and they get really busy. And sometimes that busyness, we stop connecting with each other, and things can go kind of terribly wrong very quickly with some of that stuff. So it is preventable, it's treatable,
And I really encourage anybody who is struggling to get the help that they need and to reach out. This should not be something you're embarrassed by. It should be something that we can freely say, oh my goodness, I had no idea I was struggling with this, but look at here, now I'm struggling. And it's okay to talk about it, and it's important to talk about it, and we should open up those conversations with our young people and with anybody in our family.
I honestly don't know if there's anything that you can say to someone who's 12 years old, 15 years old, to make them make a different decision other than provide information for them, other than show them, hey, if you decide to do this for fun a couple of times, this could be the outcome. And you have no decision over whether you use it a couple of times on the weekend or whether it takes over your entire life and you overdose and have to go to treatment and then have to upkeep that treatment on a daily basis for the rest of your life when other people are building families and going to college and having healthy relationships with other people. If the information was available to me when I was at that age to know, hey, I know it looks fun and maybe it is fun, but these are the possible outcomes of doing that, I think that I would have made a different decision for myself and for other people if I could let them know that.
Now here's what I know. 12-year-olds are smart. 15-year-olds are smart. And a lot of times they're smarter than the parents about what currently is happening with drug use and substance availability. And so we need to arm our young people with information so they can make an informed choice. I'm not going to be there when she chooses to use drugs or not, or chooses to take a drink of alcohol or smoke a bowl. I'm not going to be there to say, Amanda, you should make this decision. But as a parent, I feel like if I would have armed her more with information so she could make an informed choice. Like, okay, I'm going in with my eyes wide open. Here's what I know. It can be fun and a good time, and I feel like I'm at a party, but it could also lead to physical sickness, mental illness, emotional wreckage, and ruin a lot of things in my life. I think if I had armed her with some information on here's what really happens in your brain when you start using substances, just know if you start using, I want you to go uninformed. I want you to make an informed choice. And I think we need to do a better job with that with our young people.